So, whilst for a long time I didn't think that it was necessary to these days make a video on the dangers and, in many instances, the futility of antibiotics. But here I go. I decided to make this super short video. I don't need to go into all the details why antibiotics are not a good idea, and I'll mention a few things. But so often I hear clients that come to me and they tell me I'm doing XYZ. And then, yes, every now and again, I do a round of antibiotics for whatever their reason is, or my doctor puts me on antibiotics. And I want to say, whenever I hear antibiotics, whenever I hear someone that is not healing, that can't regenerate their body, that is still dealing with gut issues, even though they're doing all these gazillion things, right? Because that's typically the people that come to me, they tend to be the kind of people that they've tried all the things, they are trying all the things, and nothing is working. Nothing is working. But when we dig a little bit deeper, it comes out that, oh yes, I have 1, 2, 3 rounds of antibiotics. Sometimes it pops out that they've been on antibiotics, on multiple rounds of antibiotics for a long time, repeatedly. And this is where I want to say, if you're still doing antibiotics and you want to regenerate your body naturally, it's not going to happen. And the other idiosyncrasy that I observe a lot of times is people will be all natural, all yogi, all meditation, all organic, vegan, sometimes even raw. And yet, when certain things happen, they'll still go on antibiotics. Now, in some rare cases, and really truly, I want to state here, in some rare cases, we do need antibiotics. So I'm not saying that antibiotics are never valid. They are. All I can say is that, in my last 17 years, probably longer even, since we've had children, our whole family has had no antibiotics, not even for momentary tooth issues. We've always resolved everything completely naturally. And there were some instances where, for a split second, maybe we thought, oh, should we? There were, of course. Or there were instances where the healing process didn't happen as fast as we would have liked, and where we thought, oh, gee, should we now? But I know that unless we are in real dire straits, and I mean close to deathbed, okay, antibiotics are not necessary. But especially because the reality is that the negative consequences of taking an antibiotic are so profound. And essentially, taking an antibiotic sets you back, I would say, at least a year, if not two, on your healing journey. And and this is, if you're taking kind of mild antibiotics, but then there's plenty of antibiotics out there. And I've had clients with all these, I don't remember the names now, because when they tell me, I look it up and I go, oh, yeah, crap, this is a really bad one. So there are some antibiotics out there that are actually widely used that are horrendous, with so many side effects that it's not even funny. And and that's where I go, I mean, of course, on the one hand, how can doctors still in this day and age dish them out like they're candy? But okay, whatever. That's, not my business. That's not my concern. But we as consumers, we need to be aware. And I still see way too many people taking antibiotics like it's not a big deal. And And or, here's another thing that I see as people regenerate and detox naturally, as they begin this journey. Not everybody, in fact, not nearly everybody. I would say maybe 5%, probably less, at some point will experience some kind of UTI, infection, um, yeah, any kind of like an abscess or something, which is part or can be, doesn't have to be, but can be a throat infection, strep throat, whatever. Um, I was thinking when I said 5%, I was actually thinking of sort of like the more severe infections. Whereas, these kind of infections, it is probably 15-20% of people that as they go through their process of detoxification and regeneration, at some point they experience some kind of infection. And it's fascinating to see how quickly everybody in those moments, as committed as they are to natural regeneration, when an infection comes very quickly, it's kind of like we lose our minds and we go into panic mode and we go, I need an antibiotic. It's not true, because we've been all indoctrinated with this idea that if an infection comes, you can't play with that. Like you'll risk losing an arm or a leg or a death. No, I mean, that's simply not the truth. That is still very rare cases, and it takes a long time to get things to that bad state. And the reality is, if you do all the right things with natural antibiotics, which, by the way, we have this idea also, we have this idea that natural antibiotics, they're not as powerful. Are we kidding? Natural antibiotics, when you take, whether it's olive leaf tincture, whether it is oil of oregano, whether you're working with clove oil and, the gazillion others, and of course, when we work with natural antibiotics, silver, and I mean, there's many. There's actually a huge variety of them, right? And we don't need to work with all of them. Typically, when we have issues, I would say, work with two or three. Work with an anti-parasite product, natural. It's going to have wormwood, clove, artemisia, and work with a powerful probiotic, prebiotic. In fact, prebiotics are even more important. And really understand that the only reason why your body is struggling is because your gut is a mess. Infections, in as for themselves, are not a bad thing. They're part of the healing process, actually. Even abscesses, we think, oh my God, there's an abscess. Relax. There's an abscess. It's the body trying to drain. It's a little bit like when we get a pimple, right? We don't go, oh my God, antibiotics. I mean, some do, and that's when we know things are really, really bad on a level of understanding and consciousness. But we don't freak out for a pimple. And yet a pimple is simply there to drain toxins. Pus is toxins from, it's nothing but toxins from the inside trying to get out. Similar for blackheads, whiteheads, all of that is the body, the skin cleaning itself, and oftentimes not finding other avenues because maybe the kidneys are not working so well, because the liver is stagnant, because the digestion and colon is also stagnant. So, and oftentimes even the skin, or we don't sweat enough. And so, the body pushes things out where it can. So we need to approach things with a little bit more logic and calm. And when an infection is there, and especially, please, when you are caring for children, to give children an antibiotic is the biggest disservice. I mean, it's a disservice for any of us. But to give a child an antibiotic, you're setting them up for a lifetime of problems. And that is inevitable. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I have had. I don't work with a lot of parents with children, but I have sometimes little ones, sometimes teenagers. And every single time that I have, or almost every single time that I have worked with parents with children who had health issues, that, oh my God, we've tried everything, every doctor, we don't know, nobody knows. But when I sat down with them and I listened and I asked them to tell me their health history and what they were taking and what they were eating, there were always a couple of common denominators. One is antibiotics were involved, guaranteed. And the reality is sometimes it was just one round. Other times, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, where you go, okay, great. Like that's how we know we have a huge mess on our hands that's going to take time to resolve. And another common denominator is, of course, just horrible nutrition. Always eating the same things and or the same detrimental things. So we need to realize, I mean, I'm no longer super, super strict, super staunch about anything. But unless our diet is 80% health producing, health creating, then it doesn't matter whether you pop antibiotics, which are only going to make things worse, always. And I don't care if you tell me, oh, but whenever I take an antibiotic, that infection goes away. Sure, how long does it last? And inevitably, even if that one infection goes away, another one will pop up. Just give it time. And sometimes we're fortunate enough that it takes 2 years, but at some point, another infection will pop up. And then we will go, oh, okay, well, it's been 2 years. I need another antibiotic. That is the wrong thinking. Antibiotics should stay in the category of in extreme emergency situations. Maybe I'll take, I mean, I wouldn't personally because I only travel with natural medicine. But if you really don't know how to work with natural medicine and you're hiking somewhere in the middle of the jungle and you think maybe if I hurt myself, I'm going to need it, fine. I mean, I can give you that, even though the natural ones work perfectly fine. They just need a little bit longer. And if it's a life or death situation, then yes, of course, take the antibiotic. But otherwise, work with natural antibiotics. And the thing with natural antibiotics, the other problem here is that sometimes people say, oh no, I tried the natural antibiotic. Yes, whilst having a terrible diet, while not tending to gut health, while only doing that for 3 or 4 days. And then, oh, it didn't work, didn't do anything. So therefore, I took the antibiotic. No, that's also not how it works. Healing takes time. Nature's way do take longer than man-made ways because the process of healing and regeneration is organic. It is at the speed of nature, of love. It doesn't happen in an instant. Whereas there also another belief system that we hold is that we just want everything to happen like that, right? I got sick. And if you got sick, even an infection, that didn't happen just because you caught a bacteria, a virus, a something. No. Even if you cut yourself and then, you get this mega infection, it's not that, I mean, yes, that was the trigger, but it's your whole body environment that has been um, curated by you for many years that is now responding to this. So this was the trigger. Absolutely. Sometimes tick bites, whatever it is, can be a trigger. but nothing from the outside can actually bring about, this huge level of disease if you are not already weakened from the inside. Because if you have a really strong and diverse gut microbiome, if you have a really strong, healthy, clean, relatively clean liver, if your kidneys are strong and functioning, if your spleen is healthy, if your thymus is healthy, if your endocrine and especially the adrenals are healthy, you're not going to have a problem. You may still have some symptoms of an infection, yes, absolutely. But as you take the natural remedies, your body will naturally regenerate. And lastly, I want to say, regeneration, again, it takes time. Well, how long? Sometimes, as I have experienced with my own children, sometimes fully resolving an infection, a sinus infection, a blocked nose, or whatever it is, even something simple, when we know maybe there's mold involved or gut dysbiosis, it can take 6 to 8 weeks to fully resolve. And when natural healing is applied, typically what happens is that things get a little bit worse, almost to the point where, if you don't know what you're doing, and even sometimes, even though I know what I'm doing, I also, as a mother, have had moments where I go, oh my God, things are getting a bit bad here. But, I've been through the process enough, and I know this process. So I observe myself maybe having a 5-second freak out. And then I go, oh, okay, it's natural, and I just observe my own programming. So full healing, 6 to 8 weeks. And this is for something as simple as a sinus infection that is kind of, combined with um, digestive issues, potential mold, allergy. So not just, a cold, but sometimes that can also be. So the full resolution can take that long for something so simple when we do it naturally. But the beauty is that when we heal the body or when we treat the body naturally, we truly address the body at every level. Because the point is, nothing happens in isolation. So it's never just the nose, the sinus, the abscess. No, everything is always happening holistically. And I would say that that is the biggest disconnect that we still have, that we still think, if I have thyroid issues, there's something wrong with my thyroid. If I have an infection, there's something locally going on, instead of really understanding it is always systemic. So please learn how to treat yourself naturally. There's a lot of information on my website. Certainly, I speak about this on my mastermind, and my protocols and programs address, no matter what is going on, address whole body regeneration. And when we continuously, just like going to the gym, attend to our whole body regeneration, we never have to go into freak out mode. We never have to resort to all these unnatural methods that are just filled with side effects. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in another video.